Hey guys, Dr. Alex here, Punch Doctor, CEO of Punching Power, and today I want to take a look at Ramon Dekkers, including his kick biomechanics. I'm going to go over the anatomy involved, the kick phases for the roundhouse kick, and then break down a few of Ramon's kicks to show you how he does it. I'm also going to take a look at some of his punches, which almost always had very bad intentions behind them. Anatomy. Let's first talk about kinetic chains. Kinetic chains are chains of muscle that run through your body. Virtually all human movement involves stretching and contracting chains of muscle. You go for a walk or ride a bike, your leg muscles are going through a series of stretches and contractions. Movement isn't done with isolated muscle contractions. Movement is performed through sequences of stretching and contracting chains of muscle. Now, in most athletic movements, this cycle of stretch and contraction is done quickly to maximize speed and power in the movement. Think golf swing or baseball pitch. If you create a fast stretch in your muscle, you can contract it with more force and get a more powerful movement. This is known as the stretch shortening cycle. It's a cycle of quick stretch followed by a powerful contraction. This stretching loads a muscle with elastic muscle energy, which is then released with the contraction for a faster, more explosive and ballistic movement. The chains I want to discuss in context of a roundhouse kick include the deep front line, which is made up of the hip flexors, including the psoas and iliacus, and the adductors. The crossbody chains, including the front functional line, which connects the rib cage to the pelvis to the lower legs, the spiral line, which connects the hip to the opposite ribs, and of course the quads, which cross the hip joint and the knee joint. The four kick phases include a very similar structure to the four punch phases with some minor changes. However, they are still load, explode, accelerate, and follow through. Load. Just like in a punch, the first phase is about loading elastic muscle energy. Here you step with the lead leg. This flexes the lead hip and extends the rear hip. That step loads the glutes and hamstrings on the stepping leg and puts the rear kicking leg into extension, stretching the hip flexors, including the psoas and iliacus. That forward hip motion also stretches the crossbody chains, including the abs and obliques. When done quickly, this loads elastic muscle energy into those stretched muscles, and they can now all contract more emphatically in phase 2. Now, the bridge between phase 1 and phase 2, which I forgot to mention in the first go-around, I'm adding this afterwards, is a slight bounce off the rear toes. So that rear calf is also getting loaded, and you can see here there's a little bit of a bounce off those toes to initiate the forward motion where everything else follows after that. Phase 2, explode. After the muscles I mentioned get loaded with elastic muscle energy with a stretch, they can contract more explosively to power the hips into rotation and begin the rest of the motion. Phase 3, accelerate. Here you begin to see everything pick up speed. You'll see the hip continue rotating and accelerating with the crossbody chains pulling the kicking hip forward. As kicking leg velocity increases, you pivot the foot, mostly for the higher kicks, but sometimes for the lower kicks you see it too. The momentum of the kicking leg can allow you to pivot seamlessly. This opens the hip or externally rotates the leg relative to the pelvis to allow more hip rotation. You're opening that leg so more closing can occur to turn the kick and the hips farther. Your planted leg and torso act as the axis of rotation for the rotating hip. Often you'll see guys use their arm as a counterbalance to the leg and to increase torso rotation so then they can further use their crossbody chains even more to rotate the hips. As your leg continues rotating, the quads contract to accelerate movement of the lower leg as the final step. Phase 4, follow through. The leg continues the trajectory into and through the target as much as possible with good amplitude, coming to a natural halt through impact, and then resetting back to a more neutral stance for follow-up. Now, I don't have a program yet for improving kick mechanics. However, I have some Muay Thai guys in my punch mechanics program, and they've mentioned that some of the lower body drills I have in the program have improved their kicking mechanics. If you'd like to increase your speed, fluidity, and on-demand punching power, and maybe even improve your kick mechanics as a side effect, head over to thepunchdoctor.com and check out my program, The Power Punching Blueprint. The Power Punching Blueprint is an A to Z program that rebuilds and retrains your punch mechanics so you can punch with more fluidity, more speed, and power on demand so you can achieve maximum success in the ring or just keeping yourself safe. Head on over to thepunchdoctor.com to learn more. Now let's take a closer look frame by frame at some of Ramon's kicks. All right, well, let's take a closer look at this big roundhouse kick from Ramon that I featured in the intro. We're going to see how it follows all the 4 phases. First, he takes a big step, which loads not only his glute and his hamstring on the lead side, but the hip flexors, the psoas and iliacus, on the kicking leg side. All right, you can't see him, but you can see that leg has extended. And I'll back it up here. Leg is extended, so those hip flexors on that kicking side have been stretched, and now they are primed to explode, right? He can contract those very well, and he also contracts his glutes and hamstrings on his lead leg to power his hip forward. Now take a look at these frames right here, and you can see when that leg is trailing, there is stretch in his crossbody chains right there. He's leading with his hips forward, stretches these muscles, and then they contract, as you can see there. So they go from slight extension right there, right? Like in his lumbar spine, some extension, to fully contracted, approximating his hips and his ribs. So this becomes shorter as that contraction takes place. And when that comes forward, obviously his leg is following, right? And right here you see the snap of his quads extending his knee. So there's phase 1 with the step. Phase 2 bounces off those rear toes, gets everything moving. He starts moving everything, right? A violent contraction of his hips, pushing his center forward. Acceleration, right here, everything continues to accelerate and get faster. Snaps his leg into extension for as much amplitude as possible. And naturally, he's hitting a stationary target, so the movement ends, and then he resets to get into position for the next movement, whether it's a follow-up or defensive movement. We'll look at it one more time. Big step, stretches both the kicking leg, hip flexors, and the planted leg, posterior chain. A big explosive movement forward off his toes and with his hips, dragging his leg behind, which now picks up the contraction along with his crossbody chains. Crossbody chains more or less finished, leg is continuing, makes impact, and there's a reset. Here's a big example of a low kick from the other side, so you can see the mechanics a little bit clearer from this side, and it's going to follow the same principles. I'll play it in fast motion, and then we'll break it down frame by frame. Let's look at it frame by frame. So you can see in his standing position, his leg is pretty neutral. And you're going to see how that hip really extends to stretch those hip flexors, which then can flex the hip. You're also going to see him take a big step with his lead leg and turn his toes outward to open the hip to allow more ability for his hip to close and power the kick. Now let's take a look at his hip now. You'll see the psoas and iliacus. Psoas connects the sort of the front of the lumbar spine to the femur, and the iliacus connects the pelvis to the femur. You're going to see how those are stretched, and also his lumbar spine, he puts that into extension with the big step, stretching those crossbody chains in his torso. So all these muscles are stretched, and you'll see how they contract here just in a minute. And you'll see he contracts on all of them. That hip is flexing and accelerating. And you see, look at his torso go from extension to almost a flexed position. You know, his back is almost certainly flat, but also might even have a slight flex in it from going from a extended position to a flexed position. Let's go back here. So phase one, big step, stretches the crossbody chains and his hip flexors. He pushes off that rear leg to initiate the forward motion and hip rotation. His lead leg posterior chain continues the motion after he begins transferring his weight, accelerates that leg, and then, of course, compounds the acceleration with extending his knee to increase the speed of his lower leg at impact. And then he comes down, resets. You'll see him step. The referee's going to be in the way, but you'll see him step again to begin another series of motions to power his kick. So 2 back-to-back low kicks. A lot of stretch in those crossbody chains and in his hip flexors, and he's really able to contract upon them for explosive movements every time. Here's a really close range leg kick I want to show you. And Ramon doesn't really have that much room to take a big step to stretch all of the hip flexors and crossbody chains. However, he does let his kicking leg hang back a bit as his hips move forward. And you can see going from right here, you can see the arch in his back, and that back flexes, indicating contraction of his crossbody chains. It goes from a position of lumbar and right hip extension to flexion in both cases. And you can see that back flatten out, really whipping that leg around. And look where his back leg is right here. It's kind of blurry, but it goes from there to making impact in barely 3 frames. It's like 2.5 frames. So that's very quick. And you can see how that just whips around. That leg lags back. Crossbody chains are stretched. Hip flexor on the kicking leg is stretched. They start contracting, getting into motion. That lower leg is lagging behind naturally. And then with the quads, he just extends the knee and very quickly snaps that kick right into his opponent. So close range kick, not a lot of room to take a big step, still able to have a big emphatic contraction with a good impact. Here's a sequence of Ramon ripping a hook to the body, and you're going to see him throw it off of a flat foot. And he does this kind of frequently to double the hook, like go body head. He goes here with a little throwaway to the head just to keep his opponent's guard high. And you'll see him then load his lead leg on the left, twisting his body towards his lead leg side. Now, when he does push off from his foot and turn his hips into rotation, opening the hip, he does let his knee collapse, which is not great technique in my opinion. You should try to keep your knee pointed forward. However, he still rips it to the body and maintains good position. And you're going to see the arm lag back, his hips start to rotate, and now his arm starts the movement, and he really rips that right to the body. And he's able to reset quite quickly and throw another one to the head. So very mobile. The knee collapsing is not great technique. However, he's still able to get back into position pretty quickly. And you're going to see a really big right hand right here, follow all the 4 phases. You're going to see independent hip and torso rotation as I talk about. His weight comes down and his arm is coming back. And right there, you're going to see his hips begin the motion. His arm is still lagging, getting into position, and then everything explodes. Hip, torso, arm with a big shot. We'll look at it one more time. He's chasing his opponent. His opponent is in a very defensive situation or position, not really able to see exactly what Ramon is doing. That's why he's able to commit more to the punch. You know, it's all about, is your opponent in a position to be hit, right? I get a lot of comments about telegraphing and how using hip rotation or hip drive to power a punch causes telegraphing, despite all the pros on my channel doing it. The reason they're able to get away with it is because they set up their shots or fire them when the opponent is not ready, or use feints and misdirection to distract their opponent while they set something up. If you want to learn more about the telegraphing myth, take a look at my telegraphing video. Link is in the description. Now you see his weight come down, pushes forward with his hip while his arm gets into position, and now everything launches. And you'll see the hip finishes its movement while the torso is moving. Torso is done pretty much, and now the arm continues. So hip, torso, arm, into and through. Here you're going to see a sequence similar to the last one, following a similar pattern. You're going to see a throwaway essentially to the head, which keeps his opponent's guard high. You're going to see him transition right into a left hook to the body, really rips it to the body. You're going to see him follow up very smoothly with a couple more punches, a 1-2, using his weight transfer and his hips to link the punches together. Right here after the 2, his weight is on his left leg. Perfect position for a hook. You're going to see his hips start to come forward as his arms lag back. And then he launches that arm right to the chin, puts his opponent down. We'll look at it one more time. Rips that left hook right to the body. Follows up with a 1-2, just effortlessly linking punches together. Here's in a great position to follow up with the hook. His weight is on his left leg. You're going to see his arm lag back and his hips move first to stretch those crossbody chains. And now everything gets into motion, explodes, accelerates, impact, finish. We'll watch it one more time in full speed so you can see just how fast he is linking everything together. And now we'll watch it in a little bit of slower motion just so you can see how everything works together. And if you're interested in learning how to link your punches together just like this, my program, the Power Punching Blueprint, can show you how. The Power Punching Blueprint is an A to Z program that is designed to rebuild and rewire your movement patterns so you can fluidly and effortlessly link punches together with more speed and power on demand. I have drills and exercises to get you really utilizing your kinetic chains and the stress shortening cycle in your punches to improve your mechanics for more confidence and respect inside and outside the ring to maximize your success in boxing, MMA, or just keeping yourself safe. If you'd like to learn more, head on over to thepunchdoctor.com. That's it for now. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.